guys are good. You guys are good.
We're gonna bring the meeting to order for the Queens County Planning Commission for Thursday, December 12th, 2024. On order, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comments? And if it's related to a particular project that's on our agenda, we will hold any comment until then. You have anything, Bruce? No. Okay. Meeting minutes review? We don't have to do that anymore because it's on it.
Not, you might next month,
Just take
depending
that
on
off the agenda.
whether it's posted or not, but
Okay, extension requests, there are none. Updates, legislation and legal matters.
Good morning, Stephanie Jones, Long Range Principal Planner. I just want to give you some updates on the text amendments that you had seen in the last couple months. So 2413 and 2414, which one was the indoor shooting range, and then the impact fee exemption. Both of those text amendments were approved by the commissioners, and they will become effective on the 28th of December.
Okay.
So those are pretty straightforward. And then the short-term rental ordinance 2409, that did get adopted on November 26th. There was a change made to that. Originally, which you saw it required the project manager, the property owner or manager to be within 25 miles of the short-term rental. The commissioners have changed it so that the property manager or owner has to be within Queen Anne's County or an adjacent county on the shore. So that was the only change that was made to that ordinance. So that will become effective on January 11th. So I'm in the process of working on basically implementation of that because right now obviously we don't have a short-term rental, anything really. So we're working with finance, also IT to kind of get everything together for that.
And when's that supposed to be?
So it'll be effective January 11th is when it will be effective. The rollout of the program is going to take a little longer than the effective date just because of how Granicus has the program evolving, but it will be coming. So the implementation of that is going. Also, we were working on an agritourism study with the Economic Development and the Extension Office. We wrapped that up in the last month. So that was a project that we worked on. The county received a grant. The Economic Development was probably the lead on that, but we worked with the Extension Office. And basically the intent of that was to look at our code and see how we could make changes to our code in relation to agritourism. So you'll probably be seeing something forthcoming for that. As well, you've already seen this, and we did this electronically, the Town of Centerville's future land use map amendments, just because we didn't have a meeting last month and the 60 days in which we had to make comments would have fallen. So like I said, we did that electronically. There really was no large comments. There was 5 map amendments that they proposed with their comprehensive plan that was adopted in December of 23, I think. 4 of them were within the town really to provide consistency with existing uses on the property or to look at what is their gateway and redevelopment of the gateway in the town. And then the remainder was Providence Farm, which is right here. We did receive the annexation notification from the town, so that will be coming forward to you for a recommendation to the county commissioners probably next month, if I have to guess. So you will be receiving that, but that letter did already go to the town of Centerville, so I just wanted to give you a heads up that they received that comment letter. And that's all I have. So I know you've got a full agenda, so unless you have any questions, I'll let you.
I'm good. Any questions?
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Doug Summers, Associate Planner with Queen Anne's County Planning and Zoning. We're here for file 2407-0430, in which the applicant is proposing a major subdivision to create 5 new commercial lots and 28 new residential duplex lots on a 40-acre property. The applicant's requesting preliminary and final major subdivision approval. The subject property is located on the western edge of Ken Island, just south of US 50. It's the first parcel you reach as you exit eastbound Bay Bridge onto the island. Tax map 56, parcel 273, lot 2. It's located in Stevensville at the terminus of Pier 1 Road. It is zoned airport protection and Ken Island Gateway. It is within the Chester-Stevensville growth area. It's also designated as an enterprise zone and priority funding area. This is a layout of the major subdivision. All new commercial lots adhere to maximum floor area and impervious standards for the district. Residential duplex lot density is based on 15% of the slips available in the adjacent marina. 28 units are being proposed. All zoning district dimensional and bulk standards are met for both new and commercial lots. The project or the subdivision will be served by public water and sewer. APFO has been approved for the duplexes. The commercial lots will address APFO as they are developed in the future. And moderately priced dwelling units will be addressed with the duplex site plan. The site's located entirely within a critical area with an intensely developed area or IDA designation. It's partially located within the 100-year floodplain. The typical 300-foot shore buffer was reduced to 0 by the Planning Commission in 1989. And there are no steep slopes, woodlands, streams, sensitive or endangered species, or non-tidal wetlands on the site. Regarding lot access, there are no road frontage requirements in the zoning district for residential lots. The commercial lots require 35 foot of road frontage, however 18134G6 allows the Planning Commission flexibility to alter the requirements of this. The applicant is proposing to serve the development via internal access easement rather than fee simple private road right-of-ways. Narrative from the applicant was provided in your packet for review. Department of Public Works will also be in support of this proposal. And this layout here, the darker dotted easement area to the north is proposed. It doesn't exist yet, but it will be proposed as part of this. And the, I guess, hatched or lighter gray area to the south already exists as an existing access easement. And with that, I could take any questions. We'll turn it over to the applicant.
Do you have any questions? Okay,
Good morning.
good morning.
I'm Alan Hyatt. I represent Bay Bridge Marina LLP. Walt Petries to my left, Kevin Sharon to my right. Walt manages the ownership of this project. And I know you've seen several iterations. You've seen the concept plan, I think approved the plan for multifamily in the past. And there was no opportunity for utilities for that. And after careful consideration, the applicant came back with the concept of 28 duplex units. So the subdivision really, it doesn't change anything at the site other than the addition of 28 duplexes. And, you know, in reviewing the code and the Office of Planning and Zoning alluded to it, the airport protection and Ken Island Gateway zone calls for a sense of entry. And we think that there's a hotel, I neglected to mention that, you'll hear the site plan for the hotel after our particular case, but you'll have the hotel and these duplexes and the marina and the restaurant. It's a pleasant mix of uses. The promenade along the marina is a walkway for everybody that visits the site, the tenants, the occupants, the patrons of the restaurant and the marina, and it will be an attractive mixed-use community that really blends in well with adjacent properties. Of course, you have the airport there, but you have the beach club next to it, and it's I think it will be something that the community will embrace and support. As mentioned, we satisfy all of the criteria in the code. There's been a lot of energy and work. I mean, I saw the stack of documents that you all have, the plans and what have you. And this is probably a couple of years worth of work, and we've gone through many iterations, and we think it satisfies all the requirements. Environmentally speaking, there will be a significant number of plantings that will take place, new stormwater management techniques, the fact that, you know, we don't have public roads, we have these easements as planning and zoning indicated. You know, they meet the criteria for the road standards, and it will not, the expense of maintenance will not be borne by the public. That's going to be handled by the community. You know, we have a master declaration. We've gone back and forth with your council on some of the language in these documents, but there, you know, that will be this master declaration will be a document that imposes the obligation of maintenance, repair, what have you, amongst all of the various lots. And you know, I think we have it covered. Kevin, I just would defer to you for a moment. Is there anything that you would like to add? I mean, you're satisfied that we meet the requirements of section 18(1) of the code, I assume?
Yes, we meet all the county codes for the major subdivision.
And of course, we are asking for both the preliminary and final approval at the same time. We explained that in a document that was submitted to the Office of Planning and Zoning. To have a second hearing would be a bit redundant. I think we've satisfied all of the requests from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and I just respectfully ask that you approve that at the same time, because you have to in terms of the procedure if we're going to go forward, and we would ask for that. And then the only other different or the flexible request is that we would have these easements in place instead of roads. And other than that, I believe we satisfy all the criteria for setbacks and everything else. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. With
Do you
that,
agree with that statement?
I do.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just for my information, could you tell me why these easements are required? Any of you can answer that.
Yeah, I can answer that. So, we are not allowed to create a landlocked parcel or lot. And so you either need to have frontage on a public road, a private road, or access through an easement. And so we're electing to do it through an easement.
That answers it, thanks.
Kevin, what's the justification for the sort of the choppy look, to the lot designation? You've got discontinuous pieces and
Yeah, so,
weird angles and.
yeah, I mean, the property itself isn't, you know, a true square, but I think they all fit pretty well with the exception of 7 and 8, and a lot of that was, 7 and 8 are the ones on the bottom right. A lot of that was driven by, the existing impervious cover and what's allowed. So those two may be redeveloped together at some point, and those lot lines can change, but in order to meet the code and the minimum impervious cover, lot 8 had to get a little bit bigger because it has the impervious cover.
Just looks, you know.
On paper it does.
Yeah, it really does.
And I take it from this that the FAA is happy? Which
Yes.
is an extraordinary accomplishment.
They've been part of the stack reviews as we've been going through, and so, our understanding is that they're satisfied with the information that we provided.
okay with, state roads and all the county departments?
So our understanding of that is that the adequate public facility study, which is what we submitted and was approved, all the surrounding intersections will continue to operate at an acceptable level. The increase in trips for this development, which includes the hotel and the duplexes, is only 4 additional trips in the morning and 10 additional trips in the evening. There is a letter from State Highway that, you know, they're asking for off-site improvements. We are not fronting on a state highway, and according to the APFO letter that we received, our understanding is that those improvements are not going to be required now, but any development on any of the other parcels will have to go through their own adequate public facility study and may generate the need for improvements at the intersection.
Okay.
So we're not proposing to do any.
That's right, I don't know if you've seen the last communication from the State Highway Administration, but that's exactly what was communicated to us, that by not requiring us to make any improvements at the intersection of Pier 1 Road and Route 8, that doesn't mean that it can't ask for it later if any of those lots are developed or redeveloped. But right now, as Kevin indicated, we only generate 14 new trips because there's 2 office buildings that are been torn down, raised, you know, and so, I don't even think we counted that, right, on one of them, right? Yeah, so the conclusion is there are no required improvements at this time.
Okay, do we have comment, Mr. Coogan?
Thank you. I just want to make a point of
Introduce yourself.
clarification. My name is Steve Cahoon. I'm with the Queen Anne's County Department of Public Works and review APFOs for the county. So a point of clarification that the APFO is a county ordinance and county requirement.
Talk a little louder.
Sure. The APFO is a county ordinance and county requirement. And State Highway makes their comments through the development review process, and they'll also comment on the traffic studies. So State Highway's comments related to the intersection of Pier 1 Road and Maryland 8 were through the development review process. And they can make their comments outside of the APFO. So satisfying the APFO for the county is one thing, and State Highway still has the ability to make their comments on improvements that are needed. So with State Highway asking for improvements at that intersection, we've included a condition in the final approval that all State Highway comments be addressed prior to final signature. So as the applicant is working out those issues with State Highway, and I know there's been conversations recently about what, if any, improvements will be necessary, we added a condition into the final approval that they satisfy State Highway in order to get the subdivision approved.
Okay. Troy, did you have anything? Okay. All right.
If I could just add to that, we understand that issue's on the table, and we're not opposed to the improvements that are being requested. We just don't feel that the last guy through the door needs to be the one that pays for all the improvements. There have been other projects down Pier 1 Road that have not had to contribute to this intersection improvement. In fact, we think it should be a State Highway funded project and not a developer funded project, especially with the fact that we're only adding 14 trips to a highly commercial and intensely developed area. So we would respectfully request that you strike that condition of number 2 in the staff's recommendations, that we don't feel that it's necessary that we provide the State Highway improvements. So we can have that discussion.
Okay.
And if I can just clarify on that, there have been significant transportation improvements done in this area when previous developments occurred. When the county made available land for the inn and other developments down there, we realigned and rebuilt Pier 1 Road. It was a 2-lane tar and chip road with no curb and gutter and open ditches, and it was reconstructed as a 2-lane asphalt road with shoulders with curb and gutter.
Is it a
with-
county road or a state road?
It's a county road down to the marina property, yes.
Okay.
With curb and gutter, with stormwater management, and with sidewalks. So, as the county was allowing development to occur, the county also upgraded that road significantly, in that area with the development going on.
Okay. Public comment? Any questions?
I have one, just on that same vein, Kevin, what sort of upgrades would you anticipate State Highway suggesting, requesting of you? I mean, it's just-
So what
If
we,
it's recently upgraded, curb and gutter, as Mr. Cahoon just outlined, relatively new intersection. It's not terribly busy, at least in my opinion, and my exposure to it. What do you think? You know, so you've asked for number 2 to be stricken. What sort of imposition do you think they will come to you with?
so they've laid out in concept what they're looking for, and it's not necessarily, my understanding is not Pier 1 Road itself, it is strictly at the intersection, where they want a widening of the road to accommodate another turn lane, and then the signalized intersection to be, or the signal at the intersection to be modified for, I believe, a dedicated left turn. Right now, there's opposing turning movements, and so they wanna separate those because there have been some accidents that occur there. But I think to the tune of about $300,000 or $400,000, for those improvements. And that's, you know, that's not soft costs of engineering or right-of-way expansion, acquisition, that kind of thing, it just hasn't been studied to that level. But it's a pretty significant improvement.
Did you cross some magic threshold? I mean, why are they trying to hammer the last guy in the door?
That's what we're not sure of. Yeah, that's what we're not sure of. I mean, that's why I said I believe it's a state highway issue, where all the intersections are operating, and that's why the developments down Pier 1 Road that have recently opened, that's why they didn't get stuck with it either, because the intersections are still at acceptable levels. The state just would like to see this function a little bit better, and so they're trying to pin it on this project, in our opinion.
Any other questions? And any public comment? Mr. Foster?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jay Falstad, Queen Anne's Conservation Association. My comment is pretty light. This is not to oppose the development or anything like that. One thing that we should all be looking forward to on all development in Queen Anne's County is planting native species plants. And so I think the representative for Mr. Petrie said that they were gonna be planting a wide array of plantings on the property. And I would just encourage the board to insist that those be native plants rather than exotic ones. Planting native is important for promoting local biology, insects, birds, that sort of thing. And so on behalf of a conservation organization, we would really want to see this developer and all developers push for native species plants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comment for that?
So, the planting will be done as part of the site plans.
And that's
So it
not
will be
been
considered
submitted yet?
down. Well, that is not yet. I mean, it's in, but it's not before you yet. I would say the airport does have a list that that the applicant must adhere to height, for height restrictions. Within that list, I'd imagine there are native and non-native that they could select from, so I would say the option is there,
Okay.
but
I think a lot of that also has to do with concerns over attracting certain bird species around the airport.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want 1,000 bird feeders out there attracting birds in the airport. Right, so,
Yeah,
it's a little
yeah.
special.
And it's not for this application, but there's a balance between what critical area wants for, you know, because critical area demands native species also, and then we have to balance that with what FAA allows, so that's how they would go.
Critical area will require natives. at least in the current way, right, 1,000 feet, right? So that's everything on the table here is within 1,000 feet.
Yes.
So that, address your concern, Mr. Falstad?
Thank you.
So, any other questions or comments? Can I get a recommendation?
Okay, Madam Chair, with regard to road frontage requirements, resolved that the Planning Commission regarding the request by Bay Bridge Marina LLP for the elimination of the lot frontage requirements for non-residential lots under the provisions of 18-134.J.6 and is more particularly described in Planning and Zoning File SP number 24-07-0430, hereby finds the elimination of the lot frontage requirements will improve traffic flow, pedestrian connections, overall site design, and support better stormwater management. Department of Public Works has determined that the existing and proposed road designs meet the public road standards for the pavement sections. Emergency access is maintained. Utilities will be privately owned and no utility easements will be required. Connectivity to public roads will be maintained. Department of Public Works supports the applicant's proposal and hereby grants the requested elimination of the lot frontage requirements for non-residential lots. Are we doing this all, Sam, or are we taking this one section at a time?
I would take it one section at a time.
Okay.
Okay, do I get a second?
Second.
Any questions, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We don't have, just a question, point of clarification, we do not have Jeff and we do not have Bill because of not having,
Right.
Yeah.
Zoom. Okay. Is it a,
I'm trying to monitor the live feed on the YouTube, but they won't be able to comment into the room through that.
and they call in?
It's possible. You want me to send them a text and,
Should we make an effort to get there?
You can try, I mean, you have, a quorum here. I will point out that for the next request to receive preliminary and final, it requires an affirmative vote of at least 5 of you.
Yeah, okay,
But you would all have to vote in favor of it.
okay. Do we have to do that before the vote?
So this would be to grant their request of preliminary and final at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, do we have to have them involved now, or can we wait and see if we have the 5 or don't have the 5?
So I suppose you could get through the factors, and then when you come to vote, assuming that both of them are able to listen right now, you could try to call them.
I don't think they are they?
probably not.
But
They
if-
probably
yeah,
don't know to
if-
go to YouTube or Facebook.
If they're not able to listen, then they can't participate in the vote.
Okay. Yeah, we could have a 5-minute break. We'll take a 5-minute
Do
break.
you want to get a conference call to go in, is that what you're trying? Yeah, we will need to recess, because I'll need to grab a phone set up,
Yeah.
and that may or may not be.
We'll take a 5-minute break and try and get them to herd them in.
Yep. board members that are not present, and they haven't been participating in the hearing, so they haven't heard any of the evidence, so they wouldn't be able to vote on this application. Because you're requesting preliminary and final, and the rules require an affirmative vote of 5 to grant both of them, the commission would make it your election, so you can elect whether to proceed with that request, or you can postpone until a later meeting, or you can revise your application to preliminary only.
I think we'll proceed.
Okay.
Ms. Dobson, just one note about, no, you're good. Okay, disregard.
Okay.
So we are gonna move on to the major subdivision
Yes.
resolution?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to major subdivision, be it resolved that the planning commission regarding the request by Baybridge Marina LLLP to create 5 new commercial and 28 new duplex lots on tax map 56, parcel 273, lot 2, and as more particularly described in Department of Planning and Zoning file SUB 24-07-0430, hereby finds the major subdivision is consistent with the goals and objectives of the Queen Anne's County 2022 Comprehensive Plan. The major subdivision is consistent with the Queen Anne's County zoning and subdivision regulations. Based on Article 3, Section 7D of the Planning Commission rules for subdivisions to receive preliminary and final major subdivision approval, the applicant has demonstrated that combined preliminary and final approval of this subdivision is in the best interest of the public. The applicant has provided adequate reasoning for combined preliminary and final approval. The applicant's request for combined preliminary and final approval is not based on any delays or inaction on their part. The applicant has adequately notified the public of the proposed subdivision. The Department of Planning and Zoning has certified that no further time is required to make any other determination by the Queen Anne's County zoning ordinance, and hereby grants preliminary and final major subdivision approval subject to the following conditions. Number 1, any remaining edits and/or documents required by Planning and Zoning, Department of Public Works, or any other reviewing agency to be reviewed and approved. At this point, Madam Chair, I'd like to stop on number 2 with regard to the edits or documents required by State Highway be addressed. Stephanie has pointed out that this is a standard condition that we see in many of our resolutions. However, my concern is how do we separate the heavy lift that State Highway has already stated an intention to possibly propose, and just any kind of standard edits or comments that may come, as a result of any projects we review. So this is where I hesitate. My intention was to leave this out in my resolution, but I also want to respect, planning and zoning, and the fact that this is a standard, and I understand why. But in this case, I feel that we have prior knowledge of a special circumstance that may come down the pike from State Highway. So I'm at a loss to how to read this to satisfy standard planning and zoning protocol, and to also, I want to use the word protect, but to separate out that heavy lift that's specific to this project.
So,
I think Mr. Cahoon is
Are
trying
you gonna give me an answer?
Can I just interject, I think you can leave.
Well,
I think no.
Because it's county, right?
If it's not in there, the State Highway Administration can do it, it wants to do it anyway, so I think that rather than debate that, we just go along with leaving that standard, condition in there.
Okay, Mr. Cahoon.
I think that's correct, that the condition is open to acknowledge State Highway comments. And if the developer and State Highway are working together on what that improvement would be, or if that improvement goes away, or it's deferred till later development occurs, then they adjust their comments, they satisfy the comments, let the county know things have been addressed, and it's fine. So we're not saying they have to do the improvement in order to, get approval. We're saying they have to satisfy the state highway comments that will come out during the development review process.
Okay.
And as was mentioned, we can move forward with the subdivision approval, and then state highway can deal with their comments, outside of the county's approval process, as was mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you, wait a minute.
Rob Gunter, Development Review Principal Planner. Steve's absolutely correct. We had a project come through that was a redevelopment for a site that the impacts were already addressed a long time ago. And State Highway asked for a full-blown traffic study. The project got approved, but the applicant worked with the state, and the state ultimately retracted their comment, realizing that, well, they really didn't need that. So it's not an anomaly for the state to work with an applicant to vary things. These comments are strictly based upon uniformly addressing the agencies that make the comments and not trying to supersede them.
We believe the project has, moved through the process, they've reviewed and dealt with all the comments, they've received the APFO approval, it's ready to move forward, we're just optimizing and getting final comments resolved.
Thank you very much. Okay. So I'm gonna continue, on the conditions. Number 2, any remaining edits and/or documents required by the Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration must be addressed. Number 3, all required legal documents must be approved, signed, and recorded prior to obtaining final site plan signatures. Number 4, the conditions specified in the letter from the APFO administrator dated November 22nd, 2024 must be met. And number 5, all required signatures must be obtained.
Do I have a second? Okay, any comment? Any questions? Public comment? There being none, can I get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if you noticed, but building 4 is gone.
The what?
Building 4 is no longer there, it's gone. We've tore it down. So, we're on, we're launch.
Okay, next, Chesapeake Bay Beach Club. Rob Gunter.
Board ready.
You're right.
Good morning, everybody. Rob Gunter, Department of Planning and Zoning. Next up, we have the Chesapeake Bay Beach Club, who is proposing Wilson's Cove, which is a hotel at the Chesapeake Bay Marina. And today they are here requesting major site plan approval. So you've seen this map before. Located in the same place on Ken Island, south of Route 50, southeast of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. More specifically, tax map 56, parcel 273, and will be lot 3. The subdivision is currently here and just about ready for recordation as soon as we can get some approved and executed legal documents. We're in Stevensville. This property is located on Marina Club Road, which is at the end of Pier 1 Road. And this property will total 2.118 acres. It is located in the Airport Protection Ken Island Gateway zoning district within the Chester-Stevensville growth area. It's an enterprise zone and a priority funding area as well. So this is the, what was the existing conditions on the site. I just heard Mr. Petrie say that the building has been removed. So the existing building to be removed, the parking will be removed and reconfigured to accommodate this site plan. So the hotel is proposed with a bathhouse. It will include 32 rooms on 4 floors. The require public water and sewer, for which allocation was granted in April of this year. All dimensional and bulk standards for the zoning district have been met. In looking at the site plan, here in black, that's the hotel structure itself, located in front, in the light green here, and on the other side of the parking lot are the proposed areas for the stormwater. The brown lines throughout the site are the on-site pedestrian connections to the building and the boardwalk out back, as well as off-site connections to the sidewalks for the duplex site plan, which you'll see at a future date. On the marina side of the hotel, you can see a large patio area with 2 lawn areas on either side and a swimming pool right in the middle. The permitted floor area for this site is 36,896 square feet. The applicant's proposing 26,595. On the impervious, they are proposing 1.433, which is less than the permitted as well. They are required 39 parking spaces. They are proposing 70. The excess spaces will be entered into a shared parking agreement with the marina and the duplexes and any other uses that may come forward. Adequate public facilities for the site has been approved. There are 3 conditions. The applicant must purchase all water and sewer allocation and construct any necessary infrastructure. They must pay impact fees at the time of building permit and satisfy any outstanding comments that may exist from the site plan and subdivision. We referenced FAA earlier. The subdivision really didn't have FAA requirements because basically it's just lines on the paper. It's the site plans that have to address the FAA. And in this code, this zoning district, the code requires the airport manager to support these projects, and she does. It's been determined that the FAA says there's no hazard to air navigation for the project, and that the project is not expected to have any adverse effect on the automated weather observing system located at the airport. The project meets all landscaping requirements. There is a small area within the 100-year floodplain, and the project will have to comply with the floodplain ordinance. As Doug mentioned previously, the 300-foot shore buffer was reduced by the Planning Commission in 1989. There's no streams, woodlands, non-tidal wetlands, threatened or endangered species on site. Forest conservation is not applicable in this case because the entire property is located within a critical area. It's designated as an intensely developed area as well as a modified buffer area, and all of the critical area requirements have been met. On this image, you can see the various colors. Those are different landscape requirements. It just gives you an idea of how things will be planted on site. And Doug was right, there's a list of approved airport plantings that the applicant has to select from. So they have complied with that as well. So here we have the
Out of
architecture.
curiosity, are they all indigenous or?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. There is a mix
Just
of,
Kind of we've just heard from the applicant that critical area plantings have to be native.
the required critical area plantings, not
Correct.
all plantings within the critical area.
Good designation,
So-
differentiation.
On this image, the green are all the required mitigation plantings, so all those will be native. And many of the other ones are too. The stormwater plantings, I believe those are native trees. But I can't speak to that, I'm not a landscape architect. So this is the front side of the building. This faces east, so this will be what folks see as they drive down the road. Here we have the marina side of the property. This will face obviously the marina, the bay. You put the Bay Bridge in the background. Here you can see the amenities, and Mr. James can speak more to that when it's his turn to talk. And I pulled this from a website we found. It's a real estate website for the duplex units, which you have not seen yet, but it does a good job of depicting the property, at ultimate build out, it'll give you a sense of what it will somewhat look like. So, with that, before I turn it over to the applicant, I'd wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday. This will be the last time we see you guys before that, so I wanted to get that plug in.
Thank you.
So, answer any questions, we can turn it over, make Mr. James speak. You're welcome.
Rob told me before we started that I wouldn't have to say anything because he was gonna cover it all, and he pretty much did, but I wanna just touch on a couple.
You have to introduce yourself.
Kevin Sharon, DMS and Associates, representing Chesapeake Bay, Beach Club, and Derek Janes. Just for context, we were here in April, and this probably should have preceded the last presentation too, but we were here in April for a concept plan for this overall project. And that allowed us to go on and secure water and sewer. Water and sewer was granted. The allocations have actually all been paid in full. The public works agreement has also been executed. But after April, working with the planning office and the developer, we broke the project down into 4 separate projects. So the first one was a minor subdivision, which, as Rob mentioned, is almost approved. That does not have to come before the planning commission, that's just an administrative level. But that was to create lot 3, which the hotel will sit on. The next one, which is the application you just heard, was the major subdivision. And then the planning office wanted us to separate the major site plans into the hotel and the duplexes. So 4 separate projects we've been tracking since April and getting there to the end.
It's been a grand time.
Yes, it has. So I also wanted to mention that Derek and his group have named this hotel Wilson's Cove in honor of the late John Wilson. And it's part of the Beach Club assets and will contribute to the other 2 properties that they have in the area. The amenities in the back, I'll spare Derek from having to go through those, but essentially there's a central pool on an elevated deck that looks out over the marina. There's a couple of lawn areas on either side with seating, fire pit tables, outdoor fireplace, and then there's also, from the parking lot side, there's pedestrian connectivity to the promenade around the marina itself, and pedestrian connectivity over to the overflow parking lot. So that's about all I wanted to add. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Mr. Sheeran, that we mentioned pedestrian connection, does that include bicycles?
So all of the sidewalks are a minimum of 5 feet, so you could ride a bicycle on it. The sidewalks in front of parking spaces have to be 7 feet, and then the promenade, I believe, is about 16 feet wide.
I just
that's
envision
existing.
people using, right, this is a sprawling property,
Right.
waterfront in close proximity to the Cross Island trails and things like that.
Sure.
I just anticipate you getting some visitors on 2-wheel as well as 4.
Right.
And can I get sort of a clarification on the request for increased parking? Right, we're trying to reduce our impervious cover. Can you talk to me about that justification and the shared approach?
Investment, additional parking.
The additional parking, Derek Janes, Chesapeake Bay Beach Club. We felt like we needed additional parking for growth in the future more than anything. We do a number of events between both of the facilities. This is kind of the interconnector between both the waterfront campus and the existing hotel that we have. So we felt like in the future we would potentially get into bigger events where we needed more parking as it related to both staff and guests. We feel like this is going to be a destination where a lot of people will come and want to use our property to not only stay for a couple of days, but we also have a 4th floor lounge that's planned within this building that we thought we might need some overflow parking with this lounge.
Just there's sizable parking for the beach club, which when they've had large gatherings, there's plenty of space there. It's just to the south of this, south and west of this aerial. I hate to see empty parking lots 90% of the time for that one event that you have every 5 years that somebody can't walk to the next parking lot.
So, you know, I've been on site now for 25 years, and it's not uncommon on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to have 0 parking lot. In fact, almost every Friday and Saturday, certainly in the summer, between motor coaches and vendors and everyone coming to our property, we're almost full. In fact, last Saturday at the inn alone, there was 1 parking spot left. That poses a challenge for the inn as well, because a lot of people will pass us by thinking that we're already full. We may have guests on property and Noxie's may be half full, but the hotel's full. And those guests may be somewhere else within our properties, therefore we have no parking left.
You have oversized parking areas for coaches and buses and trailers and things?
We do, we typically put them in the back of the waterfront campus for that. But, you know, 5 motor coaches picks up a lot of space.
Sure.
Mr. Lee, can I speak to the parking as well? This parking is also part of the parking that will happen overall on site, which with the concept plan, the planning commission did grant a parking reduction. So there are already less spaces than they are required. So this will help fill in some of the need elsewhere, albeit an awkward place to park if there's nothing left at Libby's to come all the way back. I don't know off the top of my head how many spaces they are below, but they are definitely below total, in totality,
Right.
what is required.
I believe it was 56.
That's what was granted.
Right.
Are you that far below? I don't know if you reached it, but they can be up to 56 less than what's required.
So the understanding is that those excess parking spaces would be available to anybody within the complex, would not be restricted to the hotel?
Yeah, they're gonna, as I understand it, they're gonna do a shared parking agreement with the marina itself, and they would be available. And when Mr. James speaks, this is his waterfront campus right here, this is the beach club, and this is the existing hotel with Noxie, so the hotel is right, the new hotel is right in the middle of the two.
I understand that, I just was anticipating that there would not be signs that said something like restricted to hotel guests only, or something of that nature.
Well, if it's shared parking, that sign wouldn't be appropriate.
Correct,
So-
yeah, I just wanted to be
And
very
if,
clear
if
about
it's
that.
not shared parking, the existing site plan needs to be amended because it notes the excess spaces will be
Okay.
shared.
So we're not gonna have something like we had at Wells Cove?
The intention is no. I can't promise that, but that is the intention.
Okay, any other questions? Public comment? There being none, can I get a resolution?
Madam Chair, with regard to major site plan approval, be it resolved that the planning commission regarding the request by Chesapeake Bay Beach Club LLC for major site plan approval for the construction of a 32-room, 25,727 square foot hotel with an 868 square foot bathhouse and associated infrastructure, and as more particularly described, the Department of Planning and Zoning file SP number 24-07-0128 hereby finds the project does meet all requirements of Chapter 18, will not substantially increase traffic hazards or safety concerns due to traffic generated by the proposed use, the location or orientation of curb cuts, or the layout of internal circulation, does contain a layout of buildings, parking, roads, and utilities that does not substantially increase fire, health, or other public safety hazards, is adequately buffered and screened to minimize potential adverse impacts to neighboring properties and public rights of way, will not substantially increase stormwater drainage or pollution, will not have an unreasonably adverse effect upon property values in the vicinity of the site, will not adversely affect the public welfare, and will provide for public safety through compliance with the state fire code and with any applicable county or municipal fire codes, is compatible with the general character of the surrounding neighborhood, and is consistent with the purpose, goals, and objectives of the 2022 comprehensive plan, and hereby grants major site plan approval subject to the following conditions. 1, any remaining edits and/or documents required by the Department of Public Works, Planning and Zoning, or any other reviewing agency be reviewed and approved. Any remaining edits and/or documents required by the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration must be addressed. The architecture and overall site design must substantially reflect the documents provided. All required legal documents must be approved, signed, and recorded prior to obtaining final site plan signatures. All required bonds, sureties, review, and inspection fees must be submitted to the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning and Zoning as appropriate. The minor subdivision must be approved and recorded prior to final site plan signatures. The project must adhere to all applicable regulations established by the Maryland Aviation Administration and the Federal Aviation Administration, and the conditions specified in the letter from the APFO Administrator dated October 1, 2024 must be met.
Okay, any questions? Do I have a second?
Second?
Any public comment? There being none, call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for your time.
Next up is Red Lion. Steve Johnson.
Everybody ready?
Yes, we are.
Good. Well, I'm not as festive as Rob here, in my presentation.
No.
I do want to wish everybody a happy holidays, it's great working with everyone, hope you enjoy the season, so.
He's setting a bar for you.
He is.
Well, you haven't seen my
Always.
office yet.
Make sure you stop over and take a look. I'm Steve Johnson, senior planner with Planning and Zoning. As stated, we're here to discuss project SP 24-09-0133 for Redline Solar LLC, who's proposing to construct a 2 megawatt utility scale solar array and is requesting major site plan approval. This project was last seen by the Planning Commission in May, where it's ready concept plan approval. This project hasn't changed at all with the exception of the way the landscape buffer plantings are watered, which I will get to in a few minutes. This project's located in the northern portion of the county, just to the southwest of Millington. In 2017, Queen Anne's County created a utility scale solar array overlay map. It's a 2-mile area on either side of the 69 kV power transmission lines running through the county. All solar arrays that sell to off-site customers are considered utility scale by code and must fall within this area. This includes smaller community scale projects such as the one we're discussing today. As you can see by the indication of the star, this project does fall within that area as required. Tax map 6 parcel 20 totals 121.11 acres and is located at 916 Redline Branch Road in Millington. The leased area shown here in the dashed black totals 10.06 acres. Property zone agricultural. Solar arrays are conditional use in the agricultural zoning district. They have received conditional use approval by the Board of Appeals. A copy of that decision was also included in the packets. There are no natural resources within the project lease area. It's also not within the sensitive species project review area. The applicant has provided correspondence from DNR that indicates there are no threatened or endangered species on site. However, they do indicate that phased habitat exists within the wooded area of the property. The applicant is proposing no disturbance to the existing woodlands. And to address forest conservation requirements, they will place 2.01 acres of the existing on-site woodlands into long-term protection. And this is the dashed white area you see kind of to the northwest of the site, or northeast of the site, excuse me. Here's a look at the site plan. As you can see, access is taken from Red Line Branch Road, shown here circled in yellow. Again, this is a 2 megawatt system. It consists of 4,992 modules and 33 inverters. All wiring associated with this array will be below grade to the point of interconnection, which is circled red. Parking and deliveries during construction will be within a half an acre temporary staging area at the front of the lot. That's the hatched white and black area that you see. The applicant is proposing 0.81 acres of impervious, which is far less than the maximum permitted of 4.02. DPW has reviewed stormwater for this project. It consists of disconnected sheep row and vegetation throughout the site. This vegetation will be maintained by a herd of sheep. Permanent water and sewer is not required for this project. However, any on-site work exceeding 2 hours will require portable toilet and hand washing facilities. There is a condition at the end of the staff report regarding this requirement by environmental health. Noise associated with the array will be less than 60 decibels as required. No lighting is proposed, and the existing topsoil will not be removed from the site. The required 50-foot landscape buffers have been provided along Red Line Branch Road in between 2 areas of existing woodlands. This buffer will consist of canopy trees, understory trees, evergreen shrubs, and a pollinator-friendly herbaceous layer. Watering of these plantings will be via a well and on-site drip irrigation as required as part of their conditional use approval. There is also a condition at the end of each staff report regarding this requirement as well. The maximum height of all equipment on the site is far less than the maximum permitted of 45 feet. The solar panels have a max height of 12 foot 6 inches. All the other equipment on site is 7 foot 7 inches or less. The required black vinyl coated fence will be 8 feet tall and include all required signage. And finally, the applicant did provide a site access plan. This was included in your packets as well. Trucks delivering to the site will utilize Route 301 to McGinnis Road to Red Line Branch Road, or US 301 to Dudley Corners Road to Red Line Branch Road. And with that, I will try to answer any questions or turn it over to the applicant.
Any questions from the commissioners? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Try to get close enough so you can hear me, because I don't talk very loud, you know. Kurt Karsten for Red Line Solar LLC. To my left is Charles Walker, the engineer with Arm Group. I'm sorry, I'm right. I should look first before I speak. To my left is Stephen Kerr from Red Line. To answer any questions, I would, we waited before you for concept plan approval back in May and received that with a favorable recommendation to the Board of Appeals. And we received favorable conditional use permit from the Board of Appeals in August. The project hasn't really changed, as Stephen Johnson has said, since the concept plan approval. It's the only addition is the drip watering system for maintenance of the landscape buffer. Let me ask Charles, if you've would you confirm that the project meets all the portions of the solar ordinance section 18-1 of the code?
Yes, it does.
And I think Stephen has done a nice job of going through everything else in terms of the requirements. We have reached out to the fire department and emergency medical to offer to be on site as required by the code. And the plans in the neighborhood, is the project compatible with general character of the surrounding neighborhood?
Yes, it is.
And I think Stephen's already addressed, the 2022 comprehensive plan. So with that, I would ask if the planning commission has any questions.
I have a question regarding decommissioning. At what point, what's the half-life of these panels, or at what point would you reasonably be considered decommissioning this site?
Decommissioning usually is considered in two scenarios. One is if you have a significant issue with the system. For instance, if you had a hailstorm that broke all the panels, or substantially damaged almost all the panels, and the insurance coverage was not sufficient at that time to cover, then that may be a scenario in which you consider decommissioning. Otherwise, these systems are designed for at least 25 years to 40 years of useful life. The panels themselves were guaranteed by the manufacturer for 25 years, full replacement cost. And so they are designed for that long of a useful life. And they typically do go to 35, 40 years. So decommissioning as a concept in the normal course of things would occur usually toward year 20 is when planning would start for decommissioning. I represent a lot of solar projects and developers, and this is a really interesting financial question from my perspective, because to require a financial bond is expensive. To do that for the first 20 years is a burden on the project. But at the same time, we understand from a public planning perspective the desire to have surety in place for the decommissioning event that might occur. I hope that answers your question.
It does, but what's rattling around in the back of my mind is, what's the chance that this will ever go back into agriculture?
Well, the topsoil's staying on the land for that purpose. And so I think that in most of the projects that I work with that are greenfield projects where agriculture is involved, the comment from the landowner is typically, this is the way for us to ensure that we have an adequate cash flow to pay taxes and essentially keep the land in the family. For the return on the lease rate for the farmer is greater than what they would otherwise be able to get with any crop that is typically planted. And so it is a win-win for the farmer in that context. I don't know how to answer your specific question.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
because looking at the amount required for the bond, and who knows what $67,000 is gonna be worth 20 years from now, you just have to pick a number. But, I also operate a farm, so I understand what you're saying
Yeah.
about it. I just really hate to see land come out of ag, but I understand the practical application.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On that same topic, is the potential revenue, that 30,000-ish, is that from recycling? Where's the revenue in
It
decommissioning?
is recycling, and it's things like the copper for the wires. That's very valuable. The modules typically have a secondary market. You can
Not if they're busted by,
not if they're broken. Although some of the components of the modules can be recycled. The cells and the modules can be recycled in certain circumstances. So if you have a partially broken module, you can still get some value from it. But yeah, I think it's mostly the copper and the modules on the secondary market. And the steel, like I said, the steel that
I've just never seen it in a staff report, so it's
oh, okay.
kind of interesting to follow that
Mhm.
it's not all lost.
Yeah.
Or all a fee encumbered by everybody. Thank you.
do we have any questions? Public comment? There being none? Okay, can I get a resolution?
10.06 acres lease area within a 121.11 acre parcel in the agricultural zoning district, and more particularly described in planning and zoning file SP-24-09-0133, hereby finds that this major site plan does meet all the requirements of Chapter 18, will not substantially increase traffic hazards or safety concerns due to traffic generated by the proposed use, the location or orientation of curb cuts, or the layout of internal circulation. Does contain a layout of buildings, parking, roads, and utilities that does not substantially increase fire, health, or other public safety hazards, is adequately buffered and screened to minimize potential adverse impacts to neighboring properties and public rights-of-way, will not substantially increase stormwater drainage or pollution, will not have an unreasonably adverse effect upon property values in the vicinity of the site, will not adversely affect public welfare, and will provide for public safety through compliance with the state fire codes and any applicable county or municipal fire codes. Is compatible with the general character of the surrounding neighborhood, and is consistent with the purpose, goals, and objectives of the 2022 comprehensive plan. Hereby grants major site plan approval subject to the following conditions. If by the time of construction the panels proposed have changed from that provided on the plans, updated information must be submitted. Applicant must notify planning and zoning when ownership of the solar array changes, and the signage containing emergency contact must be kept current. Prior to final site plan signature, provide the finalized forest conservation plan and executed long-term protection documents for recordation. Prior to final site plan signature, provide an automatically renewable decommissioning bond that is enforceable by the county. Prior to final site plan signature, provide an automatically renewable landscape surety and maintenance agreement. For the Department of Environmental Health, until the project is decommissioned, any owner, operator, or subcontractor performing work on the solar array site that lasts for the duration exceeding 2 consecutive hours shall provide portable hand sanitizing and toilet facilities. These facilities shall be provided on-site for the duration of the work being performed, and shall be utilized by all workers and/or on-site visitors during that time. The facility shall be regularly serviced, and all waste shall be disposed of properly off-site in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. The applicant must utilize on-site drip irrigation to water the landscape plantings as required by the Board of Appeals conditional use approval. The drip irrigation system must be installed and operational within 30 days of landscaping installation. Prior to final site plan signature, any remaining edits and/or documents required by a reviewing agency are reviewed and approved.
Any questions? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any public comment? Let's call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much.
Hey, look, I missed it too.
How you doing?
I was reading it today.
It's the worst to do. The only way you can really catch it is if you flip through the slides real quick.
Yeah, because then it changed.
You gotta look at the corners.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
And they'll all stay the same, and
Right.
then one will jump.
One will jump around.
It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Next up is
again, I'm Steve Johnson, Senior Planner with Planning and Zoning. As stated, we're here to discuss Maritime Coffee LLC, who is proposing to administratively combine 3 deeded parcels to construct a 1,415 square foot fast food restaurant, and is requesting a parking reduction of 16 spaces and concept plan approval. This project is located on Ken Island at the corner of Route 50 and Coxneck Road. More specifically, tax map 57, parcel 231, totals 1.042 acres, and is located at 100 Old Point Village in Chester. Again, the applicant, as part of this development proposal, will combine 3 existing deed parcels within the overall parcel. Additionally, 0.02 acres along Coxneck Road will be dedicated to the county. Property zone town center, it's also located in the Chester-Stevensville growth area. Here's a look at the concept plan. As you can see, access to the site is at the intersection of Coastal Road, Coxneck Road, and Old Point Village. Shown here circled in yellow. Again, they're proposing a 1,415 square foot fast food restaurant that will serve drive-through and walk-up patrons only. There will be no dine-in service and seating.
So will
Conceptually,
be none?
none.
Okay.
Conceptually, all TC district non-residential development standards have been met by this proposal. The property will be served by a private well and public sewer. Stormwater is provided on site. Those are the areas that you see in green on your screen. DPW will continue their review through the site plan process. This project has required 33 parking spaces. The applicant is requesting a reduction of 16 spaces under 18-1-83A1 to provide 17 spaces on site. A justification memo with data from the westbound junction location, which is also owned by the applicant, was provided in your packets. Here's a look at a queuing exhibit provided by the applicant. According to them, the site can support queuing of up to 36 vehicles. And they are prepared to discuss this, and there are representatives from DPW if you have questions about traffic and queuing. Conceptually, this project meets all landscape requirements. There are no natural resources on site, and it's not located within a 100-year floodplain. And the applicant will address the required 0.15 acres of afforestation by planting 0.10 acres on site. That's the hatched area to the left side of your screen, and fee in lieu for the remaining 0.05 acres. Just look at the renderings. This is the northeast corner of the building. What you see on the left there would be seen from Cox Road. What's on the right would be seen from Route 50. This is the north view. This is what you would see from Route 50. And this is a view of the southwest corner of the building and the south side of the building. And with that, I will try to answer any questions for you and turn it over to the applicant.
Mr. Johnson, can you go back to your comment about the donation
Yes.
to the county and
Yep.
where that is?
That is right here. So they will plant 0.10 acres on site, which is the hatched area you see on the.
So that's the donated portion of
No,
the
that's
project?
where they will plant.
Yes.
Yeah. They will donate. Are you talking about the right of way or the forest?
You made a comment that there's property being donated to the
Yes,
county.
sorry.
Can you expand upon that?
Yeah. It is. Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but.
You might need to see on sheet 2.
Here. It's this area right here, Mr. Lee.
And the purpose of that little sliver to the county is why?
Road frontage improvements.
Road frontage improvements. To get like the road curb and gutter, the full section of the roadway within the right of way.
So it's like a decel lane or an entrance lane?
Currently, the way the property is platted, I believe a portion of Coxneck Road is actually on private property, so we're trying to kind of perfect that.
Okay, so it's, you'd never know looking at it,
Right.
who owns it or
It's a
where.
cleanup. It's
Right,
like a,
okay.
it's a survey,
Okay.
cement, yeah.
Got it,
Yeah.
thank you. Last, Mr. Johnson, can you go through the queuing picture? Sure. And show me where the 16 parking spaces are.
So there's 3 here
Okay.
in this area, 4.
Oh, I
here,
see you've got counts on there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you now.
4 here,
Yep.
2, 2, and 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Continent is a state highway, right, or state
I
road?
think the portion running in front of this is a county.
County road.
The state right of way ends at the,
Can we go
if
back?
you go back one, to that one slide. In the upper right hand corner of that view, there's a 48.9,
Right here.
and the vertice of those two right of ways is where the state versus county divides.
Okay.
So, hoping for great success with this project, do you anticipate that the cars are actually gonna wind up backing up onto Cox Neck or into that intersection?
Yeah, we have Mr. Keeley here, who's done a queuing analysis, and we'll get
Okay.
into that. Because we figured that Joe Stevens, on behalf of Maritime Coffee, happy holidays, good morning, Todd Whalen there, he is the owner, and he's also the owner of the other Dunkin' Donuts. You might remember when he was here around 2004, getting the other Dunkin' Donuts approved. And it's been very successful. It's worked out very well. And Brandon Davis and Mark Keeley with Traffic Concepts. Just as a little bit of background, as you know, this is a redevelopment of this site. It has somewhat older office buildings on it. And before that, for those of you who may remember, I know Mr. Baker will, it was the old Downey's Chicken and Dairy Freeze. It was redeveloped into office buildings by Joe Downey about 38 years ago, something of that nature. And Todd has picked it up, he's acquired it, he's purchased it now, and is looking to do just a drive-through pickup, small Dunkin' Donuts on it. He's gonna speak to that, his business model, and how he anticipates traffic to flow through there, because he owns 8 other Dunkin' Donuts that have drive-throughs, or 7 or 8, or whatever number you own. So he's looked at all of them, he's familiar with the technology. But first, I'd just like to ask if Brandon Davis can hit upon a couple of the site plan aspects of it, and then I'll have Mark Healy he did a queuing analysis, and he's done an APF report. Both have been reviewed by the county and the state at this point. And then with the goal of providing a substantial amount of queuing on the site, so there's not spillover into Cox Neck Road. And we think that, based on the information Brandon, Mark, and then Todd gives you about his sites, that they come to that same conclusion. With that, Brandon?
Sure. The exhibit that you have on the screen. Sorry.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
please.
My name's Brandon Davis. I'm with Davis Moore Sharon and Associates, representing Maritime Coffee from a civil engineering standpoint. So we prepared the site plans that you have in front of you. The view that is on the screen right now is actually a queuing exhibit that we prepared, which is essentially taking sheet 3 of the plan set and adding the cars that you see on the screen. You'll notice that there's 30 of them that are in a black line type, and then there's some that are grayed out. That was my divide of what would impede parking and what wouldn't. But I still think that the additional cars out to the entrance are noteworthy, before you would have any backup onto Cox Neck Road. So there's 36 cars shown with 30 of them before you really get in the way of a maneuvering parked vehicle in this front 7 spaces. So the proposed building is replacing 2 existing buildings. We're proposing a 1,415 square foot Dunkin' location. As Mr. Johnson noted, it's designed to be drive-through only and online order pickup only. To have a small vestibule in the front of the building just for those online order pickups. There is a slight increase in the impervious area from pre-project conditions to post-project conditions. However, there's a substantial decrease in floor area, given we're taking away 2 existing 2-story office buildings. So from a sewer allocation standpoint, it's a reduction compared to what we're proposing here. We're proposing, it's a redevelopment scenario, so the stormwater management requirements follow suit with that. The existing conditions have no stormwater management, with drainage generally running to the back of the site. and then some to the southeasterly corner. There's a storm drain system that exists there. We are proposing on-site redevelopment, stormwater management, for water quality treatment. A proposed rain garden in the back of the site, and then an additional one that's cut off a little bit on that view in the upper right-hand corner. And we will continue to work with DPW in the next phase of the project, to provide them the additional required detail during final site plan. And we would also continue to work with them on that proposed front right-of-way dedication as well with the roads department. We noted the queuing earlier. We're proposing 16 parking spaces of reduction, which is a 48% reduction. The queuing is, again, 36 total cars, 30 of them unimpeded. We did a lot of comparison with nearby fast food establishments and prepared exhibits that I have in front of me, and numerical statistics for 6 exhibits in the area. 2 Dunkin' locations, 2 McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Starbucks. We have more queuing on site provided here than any of those locations, and we have more queuing that is unimpeded by parking spaces on any of those locations. I'd be happy to share those exhibits with you where I took the same car, assembled the same spacing, and laid those sites out just to provide a proper comparison. So the queuing and the parking reduction are closely related, I feel, especially with the drive-through focused business. So we provided a parking reduction narrative to planning and zoning during our review. The parking reduction centered on a comparison of the existing westbound Dunkin' location that is over by the Hardee's and called Classic Brewery. And then there's also a slight comparison with the Chick-fil-A in that parking reduction narrative as well. The other location for the Dunkin' location received a 64% reduction, approximately 75 are required. It has 27, and then the Chick-fil-A similarly has 97 required, 38 are proposed, so that's like a 61% reduction for those 2 comparable locations. The other Dunkin' location was also substantially compared in our parking reduction narrative, where we, before I delve into any of the numbers in the parking reduction narrative, it's noteworthy that that location is between 35 and 3,600 square foot of floor area, has indoor seating. It only has 1 order board, which Todd can elaborate on when he presents, but there's a substantial enhancement of efficiency and speed when you have the dual order board. But we had 2 weeks of summer data included in that parking reduction and determined that the peak of a drive-through and inside service combined peak of a 1 hour peak is 212 patrons. We provide support that at a conservative estimate, conservative, and by that I mean on the low end, that the capacity of that drive-through is approximately 120 vehicles per hour on the low end, and then we estimate that the online order pickup capacity could, with 11 provided parking spaces, I note the number 11 is because we're anticipating 6 employees during the peak hour for our proposed location, so we're proposing 16. But providing a roughly 11 parking spaces, that's an additional 132 patrons per hour. So looking at a potential capacity of potentially 252 patrons per hour, and we feel that's directly comparable to 212 peak hour patrons at the location across Route 50 generally from us. With the additional consideration, and Todd can further elaborate, that location across the way is top 3 in the DC metropolitan area for performance. So it's a high outlier comparison.
Why don't I, let me have Mark give you an overview of what he did for the APF and his aspect and what his role in, is he compared to other facilities outside of the county when he looked at his queuing analysis. So I'll let him, and then we can answer questions if you have, and then Todd can speak from a practical standpoint on how he thinks it'll work.
Good
morning, my name is Mark Healy. I'm a project manager at Traffic Concepts, and I perform the traffic study and the queuing study also. So, Brandon took great care in developing this site, and there was a number of iterations of this project. Mostly, we were concerned about queuing. Just to point out, the site has 30, queuing for 30 vehicles, as Brandon said. There's a bypass lane, there's dual order boards. And then also, I think it's significant to say that the distance between the window and the order board is very important, because that gives employees time to put the order together. The closer the distance, the more difficult it is. So, having said that, we looked at 5 Dunkin' Donuts. Each of the site was in Anne Arundel County. And if you can imagine, the queuing for Dunkin' Donuts comes up a lot. So we did the studies in 2019 at various locations. The longest queue from the order board back was 13 vehicles in the 5 sites that we studied. The average queue from the order board back was 9 vehicles.
So you looked at them during a peak time?
Yeah, we looked at them between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. It's the a.m. time period is obviously the heaviest for Dunkin' Donuts, because it's the primary item that they sell is coffee. In the studies we looked at, there was the queuing between the window and the order board varied, but so we concentrated on from the order board back. And this site, between the order board to the point, as Brandon said, where you're not blocking the access and parking spaces, is 21 vehicles, which is substantial. It's far greater than any of the 5 sites that we looked at. And this site offers more queuing than any Dunkin' Donuts that I worked on, and we've done a number of them throughout the state of Maryland. So I would say that the queuing for this site is more than adequate. And I think Todd can talk about some of the trip generation in terms of where this site's located eastbound on US 50.
Yeah. Why don't you go through it? Yeah, why don't you do that?
Todd Lemire. Yeah, so this is basically like a supporting site for the other side. We try to locate, it's really necessary, it's critical to put a Dunkin' if you're on the AM traffic pattern, which we all know from living over here is towards Annapolis. So this basically is just a backup for the other one. I don't know how high volume it's gonna be, but it'll probably take a little bit of business from the other side. The new business has changed so much with the phones and this and that. Now the new model, so much of our business, especially after COVID, is through the drive-thru. I can't even believe how much it is. But the existing Kent Island stores probably the lowest drive-through percentage of all my stores, because it's just so busy. So many people come in, and it also has the highest digital business. People come in, they pre-order and get their stuff and just leave. So this site's to help the other site, and it's on the PM side, so it's probably gonna be a little less busy than the other site, and it'll probably cannibalize sales from the other side as well, to some extent. People who live in, you know how it is, there's like only one, if you're not on 50, there's only one road back and forth across the island. So if you're in the Cox Neck area or whatever, you'll probably go to this one instead of going all the way to the other one if you're trying to get to Dunkin'. So we'll probably get some of that business. The new model of I have a store on Reaper Road, which was really, really problematic. We were so busy, and I think we had a 14 or 15 car stack, and thankfully it had some property up behind me so I was able to add a payment window. So it was just like, I don't know how deep in the woods I should go, but anyways, it's like 5. Yeah, that's a good example. So there's a typical Dunkin' Donuts back in the day was like 5-car stack from the menu board to the window, and then at the window you pay and you also get your food. And now we're trying to break that out like McDonald's has had for decades, where there's a payment window and then a pickup window at the busy times. And so that, initially at the Riva Road store, that's what I added, and that was like the biggest bang for the buck, where you kind of break that process out, you pay at one and then you pick up at the other. And we primarily do that at the busy times before 11 in the morning. We do 70% of our business by 11 in the morning. And then at the same store, at the Riva store, we added the double menu boards. And we used to back out on the street all the time, which was awful. And we never, I don't know, we have a 25-car stack, and that store's almost as busy as a Ken Island store. We never back out to the street anymore. I don't suspect that this business will do anywhere near like that. It's just, it's on the PM side of the road, it's drive-through only, but to have 36 cars is unheard of, or 30 cars, it's unheard of, so I don't suspect that this would be too much of a problem. The Ken Island store, we back up right now, it just added the payment window, that's helped, and then we're gonna add the menu board next, so that we can try to get that flowing as quickly as possible. It's a 30-second episode. It's supposed to be like a 5-car stack. Our service time's 2.5 minutes. Every 30 seconds, a car should be advancing in the old way. And that being said, if you average like 100 cars an hour, that's a really high-performing situation. And with the new system, if you only get 100 cars an hour, you need to step it up a little bit. It's like that's kind of a bottom threshold for 120 cars. I don't know if we'll see 150, but we'll do 20% more probably with the newer setup. So it's super important, especially especially after COVID, where such a high percentage of your business is going through the drive-through.
I wanted to ask you something else too, shifting gears a little bit. When you did the store on the north side of Ken Island, we came in for concept plan, and there was a lot of discussion about architecture, and the planning commission kind of sent us back to the drawing board to rework the architecture as you were working through Dunkin' Donuts. How did you address it this time?
So what we did was just basically mimic the same architecture.
We weren't going to do that again.
Right.
And what happened was, and Todd was perfectly candid with you, he needed that push to Dunkin' Donuts because they control what he builds, and so when he came back to them and said, hey, they're not going to approve it like this, that's when we were able to move in a different direction.
Out of curiosity, how do you stock it?
How do you stock it? How do you get delivered?
I know you don't have a tunnel on your 50, so how do you stock it?
Well, the tractor trailer shows up once a week. And then we, like at the Ken Island store, we just make sure that there's no cars parking in the area, so we can pull the tractor trailer over as far as we can.
And how would you do it here?
Same thing, I would pull the tractor trailer in, probably into that number 2 area.
Can you show us where you're
So,
talking about?
Do a break there.
there's enough room where, those guys are pretty efficient, they're in and out in an hour or 2 with everything. So there's enough room either through the bypass lane, or if you pull ahead towards the dumpster, there's enough room where you could pull a tractor trailer over. They use those electric pallet jacks, and it's all on pallets and it's all shrink wrapped.
And it's a reduced size tractor trailer, it's
Yeah,
not your typical.
We can ask for a reduced size. They could, there's enough room to swing a tractor trailer where you come in. This is one of the key things that I was worried about, and that's, I think Brandon has a mountable, right where the curb is a mountable curb, so if they're not the greatest tractor trailer driver, they can drive over that. And it works. You can either pull straight in and back out that way and come out, or you could pull straight in, deliver your goods, and then back out through the entrance, where the 2-way area is.
Circle around.
Yeah.
Circle around, okay.
They usually bring a 53-footer, but you can order a smaller one if you need a smaller one. Like in New York City and stuff, they use some box trucks, but for the most part, they're tractor trailers, and you can get a smaller tractor trailer if you need one. But I don't foresee that. I think we have plenty of room.
What do you do in downtown Annapolis? You have a store right downtown Annapolis.
Yeah, they just take the road, and just, you know, but they're in and out pretty quickly. That's a small store. They have, you know, a lift gate on the back, and then they also have side doors where they have the refrigerated cartons on the
Let me just
side.
ask you about the parking. I mean, Brandon gave all the statistics on it, but are you comfortable that you're gonna have enough parking on this site based on the business
So-
you do elsewhere and anticipate here?
We should have more than enough parking because it's really just for employees. We do a little bit of on-the-go business where people just come in and go, and they're in there quickly. So that's why where number three is in front of the store, that's kind of for the on-the-go business, where people have ordered already. We also do a little bit of delivery, which I don't really understand, but I don't know why people need delivery from Dunkin' Donuts, but we still do a little bit of delivery, you know? I think you can get your own food, but that's, I mean, maybe I'm just too old, but, so we do a little delivery, and, so delivery people will come, pop in and get stuff and then bring it to someone.
But that's, I mean, just so, there's no seats, there's no
No seats.
reason for anyone to sit down.
We-
You're not gonna have like 7 people sitting
There
there
may be
for 12
a
hours.
bathroom there, you know, for people to use the bathroom if they got off the highway. I don't wanna say that too loud so people can stop off the highway.
What we requested was, this is a minor site plan. If it wasn't at this location, it probably wouldn't even be at the planning commission, because it's, you know.
Exactly,
right.
but it's one
But it is, and we're here and glad to be here. So we're requesting concept plan really to make sure that you're comfortable with the overall plan and the reduction in parking. You know, he wouldn't want to move forward with engineering this site if he didn't know that the reduction in parking was acceptable to the plan.
Okay, any questions?
But I will say, I've had a great peek at the donut business, it's really interesting.
I have a question, and you addressed some of it just recently, Mr. Stevens, about, parking in the number 3 spot there where the handicap is.
There we go. I told you guys it was gonna happen.
Right on.
Always does, right on.
I'll try to get back. I don't need it necessarily for my question. See what I mean? It's a concern over pedestrian safety. You've got a building that's, I don't know who's gonna wait 30 deep for a cup of coffee unless you're really addicted, but, at least in that visual, you've got one pedestrian access that's on the south side of the property, that's only near a couple of parking spaces, and that concerned about employee safety and visitor safety, patron safety, as they have to cross that queuing line, or lines in some cases, to go inside to pick up their order, use the bathroom. How concerned are you about that?
I really think it's a question for Todd to answer because it's not, in my experience, it's not an atypical way across the parking lots to.
Well, I'm just thinking about other drive-through establishments and fast food restaurants. The drive-through only, and the queuing tends to only take up a half of the building, let's say, ish. And there's parking that's next to the building, so you don't have to cross those lines to get to your service. And it just stands out at me, at least in that graphic that just disappeared, that building's, 90% wrapped in cars at a busy peak time. How do you assure pedestrian and staff safety?
It would be easy, if we can get that up, it'd probably be.
I don't really foresee it being a problem, because I don't see that many people being on foot there, to be honest with you. I mean, we would have the employees, obviously you don't let your employees, even though they'd like to, you don't let your employees park right in front of the store, so.
Like they're back by the dumpster on that side.
So,
right. They're the ones that are mostly impacted then, because they're crossing potentially 2 lanes of traffic.
Yeah, but I don't see this, I think 36, if there's 36 cars on the site, there's something wrong.
Right.
Somebody didn't show up for work, there's gotta be something wrong. That would be an extremely unusual situation. And, I just don't think we're gonna have that much pedestrian traffic, to be honest with you. I mean, employees coming into the building, you would have that at any fast food restaurant where they walk into the building. I don't know that that's a super big concern. I don't see us having I don't think there's a lot of pedestrian traffic on Coxneck Road. I haven't seen too many people walking there, but, I know that they did build some apartments recently there, so there may be more than there was, but I've never really seen a lot of, 20 years, seen too many people walking on Coxneck Road, all that, between different businesses. I think most people are in a vehicle.
Well, do you have people crossing your parking lots at other locations? I mean,
Yeah.
not your parking lots, but your queuings at other locations?
Like the Ken Island store backs out through the parking.
And have you had any incidents,
No,
safety
I've never had
incidents?
an incident.
So no one's ever been hit or
No,
accidentally
I
hit?
never have.
Knock on wood, right?
Yeah.
Is there a pedestrian crosswalk on Cox Neck? Like if I wanted to go from the liquor store and then get a cup of coffee? Or the church, so the church is to the south, but is there any,
I don't believe there's an existing stripe.
so people will likely drive in?
Yeah, we anticipate drive-in. We are providing that pedestrian connectivity from, it's required for the TCUC design guidelines. So we have a sidewalk that leads to the front of the property, but we don't anticipate.
So pedestrians can access your facility to order a cup of coffee and a donut. They can walk in and order, they don't have to.
They have to do an online order.
Online, right, Todd?
So there's no walk-up pedestrian traffic?
There's no cash register inside, like you'd have to do it on your phone.
Okay.
And, we may have one of those kiosk things, but nobody's gonna actually take your order inside.
Okay.
That's kind of the new model.
Right. I'm just thinking about, people in neighboring businesses or residences that wanna walk to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I don't think,
So that has to be done via mobile app or some other
yeah.
means of
But we'll
purchase?
probably have a kiosk inside where you can do it.
Okay.
It might not take cash.
And they're not gonna be allowed to sit anyway.
No, that's fine, but they have to access the building
To get the
by
car.
foot.
Yeah.
But there's a pedestrian access across the south side, which is likely where most pedestrian traffic will come from.
We have the substantial neighborhood of, that surrounds St. Christopher's Church, and
Yep.
and I have a feeling that people would just walk along the property line in the grass to be able to get there, but we do have a crosswalk.
But they'll be coming from that southern side, right?
Right, we have a crosswalk that connects to the church, that crosses our drive-through lane.
Yeah.
Leading to the church, and then we also provide that sidewalk to connect out to Cox Neck Road for any future pedestrian improvements that may
So
occur.
there's a sidewalk
area-wide.
on Cox?
There's not on our side, there is at the front of the Baker's Liquors across the way.
Okay.
The only thought I have, and I say it for just a suggestion, is in that pass-through lane. I know that sometimes people get excited or get tired of waiting in line and they hop in that lane, maybe a speed bump someplace in there is obviously not a requirement, but maybe a suggestion for pedestrian safety.
The only problem I would have with that is like, sometimes people spill their coffee on those speed bumps. They get mad at me.
Well, did you put the cap on tight?
Yes, I do all the time.
It wasn't too hot, was it?
It's just an observation, that's all.
We don't have anything further unless you have questions.
All right, any questions? Any more questions? We have public comment?
Yeah.
Sure.
My name's William Howe. I've been living on Ken Island for 45 years. How many Dunkin' Donuts do we really need on Ken Island? I don't know. Who will benefit? It won't be the people on Ken Island, this second one. It's gonna benefit the people on the western shore coming over on the weekend. That's the only one. Traffic on Ken Island is terrible right now. And on Cox Neck Road and Postal Road, it's horrendous on Sunday mornings when the churches are in and out of service. And there's only 500-foot turn lane on Route 50 coming in there. Maybe 600 feet. This traffic's gonna back up onto Route 50. There's no way it can. There's just no way it's not gonna back up on Route 50. And then, how are they gonna get out of the Dunkin' Donuts? They're gonna have to take Postal Road, because the traffic coming in is not gonna let them go back out on Route 50. They're gonna have to go back down Postal Road. And the main reason I'm here is because my daughter owns a bakery on Postal Road that sells donuts and breakfast sandwiches and coffee than Dunkin' Donuts. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do you have anything on public comment?
Let me double check. And I've been checking the social media too, and I'm not seeing much.
I got one more comment. Also, that gas station has been run into twice without a Dunkin' Donuts in the last couple of years. It's on the other side of the Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm saying, when they come off Route 50 at 60 miles an hour, it's only like 100 feet before they gotta turn into Dunkin' Donuts. There's gonna be more rear end collisions than you can imagine. And probably gonna be in the Baker's liquor store before it's all done. So state roads has gotta do something on that intersection. The turn lane's not long enough for all these 120 or 200 cars that's gonna come down there.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Do we know the speed limit on Coxsackie?
With that location, I didn't, Mark?
People coming from the south, I don't remember what it is. Coxsackie Road has a stop sign that causes anyone coming from the south to stop.
At the intersection in front of the business here?
Yes. Before you would get to the.
So it's northbound, there's a stop sign for northbound traffic.
Northbound Coxsackie Road has a
Right,
full
so if
stop
I wanted to
sign.
get on 50, I'd have to stop at the corner of Baker's Liquors.
Correct.
And then cross that intersection to accelerate.
Correct.
Exactly.
Same coming from Postal Road towards this intersection.
Right.
Just so the planning commission knows, we have performed the full APF study. We only focused on the queuing because we thought that was the topic, but Mr. Cahoon was here, and I believe that, that's all that we performed in terms of capacity is all been accepted by the county and the state.
He's here, so,
Trey, any other questions?
and Trey's here. Trey?
So DPW's reviewed this both through the APFS, and also coordinated with State Highway. So Trey Porter, from Republic Works. So we're actively looking at this. We share the concerns of stacking. The current iteration of the site plan includes significant more stacking than what we saw on the original. Dunkin' Donuts are unique. You can't just use a fast food numbers for them because they do have significant peaks that other restaurants don't have, especially the AM peaks. So we're looking at this closely and tracking it, but the 36 potential stacking spaces on site is significant, and as the applicant has indicated, is more than other sites. We are aware that locations such as the Talbot County, the eastern location in particular, has had stacking issues that go back into Route 50. They have, in the past couple of years, I think they've used a double lane now, and they have 2 order boards. So they've modified their on-site traffic patterns to accommodate 2 lanes. So that's essentially what this is doing on day 1. So I think that the applicant's doing all the right things, and we look forward to seeing the completed traffic impact study and the stacking on-site and further evaluations by the consultants. But at this point, we are still working with SHA. SHA has provided some comments on that. Steve Cahoon is here as well to discuss the APFO review. But at this point, we are satisfied that what they provided is reassuring in terms of stacking. And obviously with the history of the owner and the applicant with other locations, it's anecdotal information, but it's important, and we're gonna be looking at all that in their submittal for final.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? Any other comments? Can I get a proposer?
Madam Chair, with regard to the parking reduction, be it resolved the Planning Commission regarding the request by Maritime Coffee LLC for a parking reduction of 16 parking spaces under the provisions of paragraph 18-1-83A1, and is more particularly described in Planning and Zoning File SP-24-02-0121. Hereby finds The proposed parking scenario shown on the concept plan and described within the parking reduction request memo provided by Maritime Coffee LLC has demonstrated the proposed fast food restaurant will generate less parking need than county parking standards require due to a business model that does not include dine-in service and seating, and that the request is consistent with parking reductions granted to similar establishments within the general vicinity of this project, and hereby grants the requested parking reduction. Wanna do these one at a time?
You need to do
Yes.
one at a time.
Yes, please.
Second.
All right, any comment, any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Okay, Madam Chair, with regard to the concept plan, be it resolved, the planning commission regarding the request by Maritime Coffee LLC, the concept plan approval to construct a 1,415 square foot fast food restaurant within a 1.042 acre parcel in the town center zoning district, and as more particularly described in planning and zoning file SP-24-02-0121, hereby finds the concept plan is consistent with the goals and objectives of the Queen Anne's County 2022 comprehensive plan, and the concept plan is consistent with the Queen Anne's County zoning subdivision regulations, and hereby grants concept plan approval subject to the following conditions: any remaining edits and/or documents required by the reviewing agency, Department of Public Works or Planning and Zoning be reviewed and approved, and that the architecture and overall site design must substantially reflect the documents provided.
Any questions? Any comment? Can I get a second?
Second?
I think council would agree that we should select and list any other findings from the staff report in addition.
That would be great.
Either just
Do you want to do
Yeah,
that?
would you like to?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
That there are 2 existing office buildings on the parcel and all existing improvements are proposed to be removed. A memo that includes data from the westbound Dunkin' Donuts location on Shopping Center Road, which the applicant also owns, has been provided. Department of Public Works is in conceptual agreement with the proposals for stormwater treatment. The proposed development meets all landscaping planting requirements, including on-site parking lot and street buffer plantings. And at forest conservation, a total of 0.15 acres of afforestation is required and will be met with a combination of on-site planting and fee in lieu. Design standards are being met as well through county oversight.
Okay, so I amend my motion to include Mr.
Lee.
Commissioner Lee's comments, please.
Second.
Second?
Any other comment or question? I'll call for the question. All in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You're welcome, congratulations. They're calling for a break now, but if we don't have public comment, I'm gonna see if we have any public comment. You guys have anything?
Pretty much. Yeah. Let's go back to talking. Let's go back to follow up on Monday.
Let's keep.
Madam Chair, the comments that were received, policy, will be copied and given to you this morning.
Okay.
So they will be retained for the file.
Just to clarify, because you received the comments after 48 hours.
It's a mine.
Madam Chair, I motion
Let's get
together. I will. Yeah, probably after the holidays. I got 2 projects I can do, but let's get together. Yeah. And maybe we can do